我在北京。
Hello everyone, it's me, Triangle Man. Elden Ring. We all know what it is, we've all heard about it, and at this point, the game is more famous than God himself. Elden Ring is a Souls game, meaning it's incredibly hard, and by the end of the game, you will have tinnitus from hearing the death sound. In true Souls game fashion, Elden Ring fucking sucks. Not because Elden Ring sucks, but because Souls games fundamentally suck. Now I know this might upset some of the hardcore gamers out there, but I don't care. If you hear someone saying get good in the comments, don't engage. These people are known as Souls apologists, who believe that just because they've beaten Dark Souls 25 times, their life isn't completely meaningless. I beat the game and spent about 40 hours doing so. In this video, I will tell you about this painful journey, documenting the relevant issues as they show up. Remember kids, that my opinion is objective fact, and if you disagree with me, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're just wrong. I opened up Elden Ring and went on to create my character. I chose to go with Vrach because I thought it was funny. What was not as funny was being wanted by literally every enemy in the game. I spent a good amount of time creating my character in my own image. I finished the character creation and finally get in the game. Now from the footage here, you might notice something. The frame rate is shit. It might have been the 25 pieces of malware running in the background, but don't worry, this gets fixed soon enough. For now, you're going to enjoy crispy and clean 15 frames a second, and you're going to like it. Anyway, I read my first messages and got told I need to jump. Do I look stupid to you? After this, I cross the bridge and get ambushed by this thing and to put it lightly, get my ass beat. I wake up, activate a Side of Grace and open the door. What I found on the other side is the fear of many Elden Ring players. The outside. I talk to this idiot wearing a white mask who tells me that I am maidenless. Tough, but fair. I take a jog into nature and run across a knight in shining armor. I thought, for some reason, that with my wooden club in hand, I could kill this guy. It didn't go too well. I decided to sneak past him and assassinate some guards. I sneak up behind them and execute a backstab, just to realize that they're not dead. Shit. I continue killing innocent guards until I find a camp. I think nothing of it and kill some more soldiers, until I run into this guy who has memorized every fight scene of Kung Fu Panda. I back off and find a cave nearby. I enter the cave and get mauled to death by some wolves. I run deeper in the cave and see a magical wall of yellow smoke. I think nothing of it and traverse through the mist. The first mistake of many. You see, traversing the mist sends me directly into a boss encounter. Just one problem. I have no armor or proper weapon. Now I could have done one of two things. A. Go looking for gear and then return. Or fight the boss with my wooden club to assert dominance. To avoid being called a casual by the Elden Ring subreddit, I decide to go with the latter. I die a few times until I find a fatal flaw in the boss. You see, if I hit him with a heavy attack, his attack resets. Now I would never abuse this knowledge to keep staggering him until death. For all my troubles, the boss gifted me with a talisman, which was completely fucking useless. Thank you Elden Ring. Glad I wasted 15 minutes to get this. I leave the cave and continue exploring. After a while, I find a Church of LA, which I can only presume is the British way of pronouncing LA. In the church, there's a man sitting by the fire. I decided to speak to Santa, who is, in fact, a merchant. Since I am absolutely stacked after defeating the cave beast, I decide to buy a leather shield. With this shield, I returned back to the soldier camp, where I found a greatsword. the first proper weapon in this playthrough. However, to wield it, I needed higher strength. I tried to rest at the side of Grace and got greeted by a woman who offered to play the role of maiden. I would refuse, but I was horny. Lucky for me, she's the only way to level up in the game. The woman then gives me a horse that she's just been carrying around. What was she doing with the horse? After banishing the woman, I decide to look around and gather some runes. I find a flail, but as with the greatsword, I don't have the stats to carry it. So, I kill some more soldiers until I can. I head over toward the castle and stop by a shack. Inside that shack, I meet yet another woman. Once again, I make the grave mistake of talking to her. In true female fashion, she instantly starts complaining.
Shut up, silly woman!
After talking to the woman, I continue my journey toward the castle. I get inside the castle, enter through the gateway, and meet this guy, Morgott. Now, to put it lightly, this was the worst mistake I could have made. You see, Morgott is tough. Really, really tough. Like put a bullet through your brain kind of tough. Now before I continue with my journey, I think this is an appropriate time to talk about my first gripe with this game. The balancing, especially with progression. You see, Morgott is the first proper boss most people will face. Now, I understand that you're supposed to grind out levels and gear to face him later. Yeah, I get it. However, this boss is complete fucking horseshit. Now let me make this clear. Morgott is not a bad boss in design. In fact, I would say he's one of the best. The issue with Morgott isn't that he's a bad boss, but the fact that he's way too hard to be a first boss. For me, it took about 40 hours to beat the game. To beat Morgott, the first fucking boss, took me about 10 hours of that playtime. This isn't just an issue with skill. The issue with Morgott being this difficult this early on is that he completely destroys the feel of the game. This boss doesn't inspire new players to want to explore and play the game, but rather encourages them to blow their fucking brains out. You go into Morgott a happy man, and come out needing 20 years of therapy in about 2 minutes. Morgott is so disproportionately hard that he also ruins any joy derived from beating future bosses. Here's a list of every mandatory boss in Elden Ring. Here's where Morgott is, and here's all the bosses that are harder than him. It takes almost until the end of the game for a boss to be even close to Morgott in difficulty. Morgott's difficulty becomes even more apparent once you face the second mandatory boss, Godrick, who's supposed to be the first shard bearer and the first really big boss in the game. To put it this way, it took me about 20 to 40 attempts to beat Morgott. To not spoil the video, let's just say I beat Godrick in under 5. This sort of difficulty ramp at Morgott made me not want to play the game in the beginning and made me not feel satisfied about beating bosses after. Oh yeah, one thing about Morgott while I'm ranting, whoever the fuck designed this small shitty ass arena needs to get fired, okay? The amount of times I rolled from an attack straight into my fucking grave is unbelievable. I want to die to my mistakes, not to bad level design. You fucking worm. Anyway, back to present, I backed off from Morgott to explore and power up my character. While exploring, I encountered some absolute nightmares, but without a doubt the most hideous creature was an elderly woman. While exploring, I found a fortress with a chest, which I opened to get a great EP. Epée, however you pronounce it. As much as I hate the French, I gotta say, this sword was pretty fucking good. It did a decent amount of damage, and paired up with a shield, I could block and poke at the same time. So, with this new weapon in hand, I went to face Morgott. You don't need to see the results. After a crushing defeat at Morgott, I found some runes with flowers, which then proceeded to give me poison. Thank you, Elden Ring. I entered the basement where I was faced with Pumpkinhead. I wasn't prepared, so I got absolutely fucked. I came back, used my militiamen as glorified meat shields, and killed the bastard. This unlocked a sorcerer who was willing to teach me the sacred arts. I spent 3000 runes to buy a spell from her, leveled up my intelligence, and was still unable to cast it. Now, here's a little fun fact. You need a staff to cast magic. This was not told to me by anyone, so at the time I thought it was a bug or something. So for the time being, I moved forward. On my journey, I found a mace. Not just any mace, but Moonstar. You see, Moonstar has a nice little ability attached to it called Bleed. In Elden Ring, bleed damage does percent health damage, meaning even if you have 1,000,000 health, bleed will always do 15% of your health bar. Now, what if, hypothetically of course, I were to journey up to one of the biggest bosses in the game and repeatedly hit them with bleed, causing them to eventually die from blood loss and for me to gain 100,000 runes. You know, just a thought. I hypothetically used these runes to level up, but I wasn't ready to take on Morgott yet. You see, taking him on melee would more than likely result in my immediate death. So, I needed some ranged options. So, through exploration, I just so happened to stumble upon Rocksling and a meteorite staff. So, with my newfound skills and gear, I once again went to fight Morgott. And in this fight, I made an important realization about the game. I was playing it wrong. You're not supposed to actually play the game and fight the bosses melee. You're supposed to use your summons as meat shields while casting spells from the backline, acting like a little bitch. After making this realization, my third eye opened. I had officially mastered the game. With such knowledge, beating Morgott was a piece of cake. Oh my god, finally, dude. After breathing a sigh of relief, I decided to venture further in the castle. At the gates of the castle, I met a shady individual. He told me to take a side route into the castle as not to alert anyone. As thanks for his help, I decided to kill him. I took the side route, entered the castle, and all was going well. Until I entered this pitch black room where I got tackled by this fucker. Now, here's the thing. Magic is cool. Until you're in a shitty cramped room with no space. At moments like these, you have to improvise. Exactly as intended. I delved deeper in the castle and saw the ugliest thing yet. Your mother. Because I am a man of culture, I refuse to lay hands on a woman. What I am not above is throwing rocks at them. Inshallah, brothers. After getting even deeper in the castle, I was greeted by the vision of God himself. A ceramic pot. Rest in peace, pot man. May you rest in pot heaven. After massacring the entire pot lineage, I found the boss entrance to Godrick. Here's how my first attempt went. Is he dead? Dead? I literally killed him by spamming rocks and like, I didn't even hit him in melee once. Pretty fucking easy boss, not gonna lie. I, for one, like to imagine this is the exact way the developers intended for Godrick to be beat. Now, some of you might say that I didn't beat the boss properly and that I'm not good and all of this. And to all of you I say, prove it! If you think you're better than me, you can duel me for the next week after this video's upload. But before you do, I will remind you that Elden Ring uses easy anti-cheat, which is a great anti-cheat for me, because it's very easy to bypass. As you join, I will turn on cheat engine, and as you cry about the game being unfair and that you're cheating, I will point down at you and tell you to get good. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. After beating the fearsome Godrick, I decided to explore around this new area that was open to me. Liurnia of the Lakes, or as I like to call it, the Netherlands. Look, they even have Dutch people. Now while exploring, I think it's a suitable time to mention my second big issue with this game. It's extremely confusing and lacking any real guidance. What I mean by this is that Elden Ring is a massive game with an enormous map. Navigating that map, however, is difficult, because until you find the map item, the location of which is anyone's guess, you're completely clueless. A quick editor's note here, this part isn't entirely true. While running this section through a few friends, one of them pointed out that you can actually find the map items using these little pillars, which apparently mark the rough location of each map fragment. Now, how the fuck was I supposed to know that these things mark map locations? If anything, this goes to reinforce my point about a lack of guidance in the game. If in 40 hours of playtime I wasn't once able to figure that these plinths mark map locations, then maybe, just maybe, you need a better fucking system. Anyway, back to the video, I just wanted to point this out. Now, I understand that Elden Ring is an open world game with an emphasis on exploration, yada yada yada, but 80% of my time playing this game, I found myself running toward a direction, finding absolutely nothing, and having to backtrack for 25 minutes. This general lack of direction seems to be somewhat intentional, as not to introduce hand-holding to the experience. However, this philosophy is fucking terrible. Listen, no one on Earth likes running around the map looking for something just to come back empty-handed. The idea behind a good open world map is that there's some indicator, through either GUI or otherwise, that points you in the right direction or draws your attention. For example, in the first area, Limgrave, it was pretty obvious. The castle on top of the hill, that's the focal point, that's where most players are probably trying to get to. The issue with the lack of direction isn't just an issue in Liurnia though, it's an issue in a lot of areas. Ironically enough, it's most often an issue in areas which should be pretty straightforward, like castles, mansions, sewers, etc. For example, having to navigate this area here is a complete fucking nightmare, which we'll get to in just a second. The overall experience really gets dragged down by this, because most of your time playing the game will be spent either chasing wind and wasting time, or looking up key locations on the Elden Ring wiki, which, believe it or not, is not very fun. This sort of pointless and fruitless exploration also completely kills the pacing, making an area feel either way too long or far too short, depending on how much time you have to spend fucking around. Going back to present, I decided that before indulging myself and entering the academy, I should go explore a dungeon. So, I open up the dungeon doors and instantly regret it as I get poisoned while walking through. Fun fact, this pool of poison is actually British tap water. Stay safe, Brits. Never forget your place. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. This fucking thing. Whoever designed this, I hate you and I wish you misfortune. Anyway, I reach the bottom of the dungeon and get faced with a British person. You drank the fucking tap water, didn't you? I'm going to say this now, and trust me, I'm going to say it many more times. Giant enemies do not work in Elden Ring. They just do not. They're way too big to be on screen, which makes keeping track of them a headache. So, to spare myself the headache, I left to do other things. And those other things involved activating Godrick's Great Rune. You see, every demigod in the game has what's called a Great Rune, an item that when activated gives you a great buff to certain skills or abilities. For example, activating Godrick's Great Rune increases all of your stats by 5. Now, let me pause once more to talk about this Great Rune System. It fucking sucks. Seriously, I do not see the logic of the design choice behind making these Great Runes, okay? The way the Great Runes work is that you use a rune arc, a fairly rare item, to activate them. Now, keep in mind that these Great Runes are supposed to be great rewards from beating some of the toughest and most difficult bosses in the game. With that in mind, how long do you think they last? An hour? 2 hours? Permanent? No, they last until you die. What the fuck kind of bullshit is that? These runes are completely fucking pointless because you're going to die anyway, so why bother with increasing your stats? This shit is the worst way I've ever seen a rune system implemented, okay? Listen, Great Runes are a reward, and you can have only one of them active at a time. Not only do you need to beat the boss to get the rune, but you also need to activate that rune, and getting there usually takes time and effort. With that in mind, I see no logical explanation as to why this shouldn't be a permanent upgrade, sort of like a talisman. Seriously, within my heart of hearts, I believe that Great Runes with their significance and all should be permanent boosts. Now, I understand that in their current state, they would probably be way too strong. But how about instead of Godrick's Great Rune giving a permanent +5, it gives a permanent +2. Maybe even with an active element to boost it to +5. Or, at the very least, have the runes be activatable by something that isn't insanely rare and tedious to grind. What if, instead of rune arcs, it costs like 10,000 runes to activate one? Yes, you can grind for 10,000 runes, but you can also grind for rune arcs by killing rats. Getting 10,000 runes doesn't take too long with top tier farming spots, but it will take its toll since you have to spend them every time you want to use it. After activating Godrick's Great Rune, I got like 100 more Great Runes. I didn't bother activating them because the Great Rune System is completely pointless. By far, this rune system was one of the biggest wasted potentials in the entire game, and honestly it's such an easy fix that it baffles me no one thought of it. Whatever, moving forward with the journey. After activating the Great Rune, I entered the academy, where the opponents were using magic. Wait, that's cheating, what the fuck? After moving on to the graveyard, I got into a struggle snuggle with one of the skeletons. Get off of me, you anorexic cunt. Inside the main building, my heart was broken once more. Rest in peace, Potman. I reached the top of the building, and there it was, the yellow mist. Inside, waiting for me, was a red wolf. To say this boss has mixed feelings would be an understatement. On one hand, I quite like the design. The attacks are simple and well choreographed, and there's not really any bullshit shenanigans going on. On the other hand, the boss suffers from being a glass cannon, which makes the fight feel both frustrating and way too easy. The Red Wolf is an enemy that is insanely fast, hits stupidly hard, and has incredible combo potential. To offset this, the Red Wolf has a very small health pool, only taking a few dozen hits to kill compared to other bosses. This boss is a huge letdown because it takes itself to extremes way too hard. The boss is way too fast to be any fun, but far too squishy to feel accomplished for beating him. When I eventually did beat the boss, I didn't feel like I had actually beaten him, but rather passed a DPS check. On the other hand, when I died, I felt like I hadn't actually lost, but rather failed to disperse enough damage fast enough. This took any and all sense of both accomplishment and fairness away from the fight. When I died, it didn't feel fair, and when I won, it felt like I got lucky. It's a shame as well because I think the Red Wolf has great attacks and choreography. I feel like this boss fight could have been a lot better had the wolf been a little slower but a little tankier to offset. Overall, not a bad boss fight by any means, but it could have been better. But there is one thing about this boss that is objectively shit. Now let's say you were to die to the Red Wolf. Well, now you have to run all the way back from here, all the way back to the boss arena. Why? This is literally just a time waste. I believe that every boss should have a Stake of Marika or Sight of Grace, whichever you prefer, next to the boss room, because otherwise having to run a half marathon just to retry a boss doesn't exactly spark joy. Unless your argument is that jogging is a part of the boss fight, I see no reason for this not being the case. But don't worry, the Red Fox isn't even the worst offender in this regard. That honor goes to this fucking whore. We'll get to her in just a second. Now you remember when talking about a lack of direction, I mentioned this area being a fucking nightmare? Yeah, you're about to see why. After beating the Red Wolf, you get to enter this new open area. Now this is, without a shadow of a doubt, the worst area in design. You see, you're supposed to go up to this area here. However, there is a clear focal point everywhere else except there. So what happens if you go from the beaten path? You would think that you'd run into a dead end or find a few cool items and get turned back or something along those lines. No. You get sent to the Elden Ring equivalent of the back rooms. You see, to me, this rooftop section seems like it will inevitably lead to progression. This belief is further reinforced by the fact that this is an extremely long area with a lot of maze-like structures, intentional and deliberate enemies, and what seem to be progression points. At the end of your journey, you even get to enter the second floor of the academy, making it seem like a legitimate loop around the progress. Unfortunately, for this 15-minute venture of yours, you get absolutely nothing. Now, let's keep in mind this extremely elaborate, well-designed and thought-out section and have a look at the intended path you're supposed to follow. What the fuck? You cannot argue that the unintended path seems much more logical as a continuation point compared to the intended one. It's nothing else but terrible level design and a complete disregard of direction. But hey, whatever, you're here now. And here, you'll get to face the best enemy in the game. And by the best enemy, I mean a guy who will parry you, and whose parry will, undoubtedly, one-shot you. What the fuck? I mean, seriously? For real? If I pulled this kind of shit in PvP, I would be banned for life. But he does it, and it's considered normal. Fuck you, FromSoft. Once you do get past the best enemy in the game, you get to take a nice 15-second breather to watch the lift go up. Once you do reach the top, you'll see the entrance to the second shard bearer, Rennala. Now, you might notice something about this boss. There is no Stake of Marika or Side of Grace. Yes, dear viewer, every time you die to this boss, you get to experience the fun and painless journey of running all the way from the red fox to the lift, waiting for the lift to come down, waiting for the lift to come up, and you get to repeat this process for every single death. That's fun. But hey, let's be optimistic and hope the boss isn't complete bullshit. Oh, the good news is, if you're a melee player, this will be the easiest fight of your life. The bad news is, if you're playing literally anything else, tough luck. Rennala is one of the most beautiful, intricate, varied and interesting boss fights in the game. She has a large variety of attacks that range from harmless to dangerous to complete fucking bullshit. Now, let me ask you, have you ever wanted to be one-shot by a combination that came out so fast that your head started spinning? Have you ever wanted to be overwhelmed to the point where you have no recollection of who or what you are? If you answer yes to either of these questions, this is exactly the boss for you. This boss is best described by the word frustrating. The second she starts using her summons, you can kiss any notion of fair play goodbye. If you give her any range or room to breathe, that's going to be another 2-minute run for you. You remember when I complained about the Red Wolf feeling like a DPS check? Well, Rennala takes that to a whole nother level. Her first phase is, quite literally, a DPS check. There is no real way for you to die in this phase other than abject idiocy, and it's literally made just to soak up time until the second phase, as if the stupidly long run wasn't enough time waste. But once you do get to that second phase, you better start running, or you're fucked from the get-go. If you manage to hit her, you've now officially entered the fucking lottery. If she uses anything aside from the moon or summons, you're in luck. That's going to be a free kill for you. But if she does use the moon or summons, that's tough. Better luck next time. Bunch of bullshit attacks that can destroy a perfectly good run in seconds? Check. Insanely long running distance? Check. Live-in DPS test? Check. Complete shitstorm of complete RNG? Check. Seriously, whoever designed this boss can go fuck themselves. The only praise I can say for the boss is that from a visual side, it is gorgeous, and it does have some of the best rewards as well. Other than that though, it's a complete joke of a boss. Regardless, after beating Rennala, the world was my oyster. So, I went ahead to explore Caria Mansion. To say the reception wasn't warm would be an understatement. I got jump scared by some fingers, invaded by the Blue Man group,
Why are you blue?
And had to fight a middle school horse girl. After going through the mansion, I ventured on to an area with towers. I just wish I had a plane.
America deserved 9/11, dude. Fuck it, I'm saying it.
I entered one of the towers where there was a woman. Listen, I've made the mistake of speaking to women twice already, but third time is the charm. And surprisingly, it was. Well, kind of. I mean, I did become Ronnie's bitch, but at least it gave me something to do in this boring ass game. Speaking of which, I think it is a good time to bring out one of my major complaints. Elden Ring's quest system is the worst. I don't want to hear it, it's complete garbage. Before I complain about just how terrible the quest system in the game is though, let me tell you how the quest system works. It doesn't. You get told cryptically what you're supposed to do and where to go, and you're supposed to kind of just figure it out. You could argue that the quest lines are straightforward and are easy to follow, but you would be wrong. The issue isn't necessarily the fact you don't know where to go or what to do, but the fact that some of the steps you have to take are so fucking random that no one can figure them out. For example, in Ranni's questline to progress after her ascension, you have to find a doll of her. That's no biggie, but do tell me, how the fuck was I supposed to figure out you're meant to speak to the doll 3 times? Not once, not twice, but 3 times in order to progress. There is absolutely no indication you should do this. It literally just works on the go to the wiki, you stupid dumbass premise. On top of that, keeping note of all the quests in the game becomes an insane chore. Why can't I just have a fucking quest log that details what I'm supposed to do and for who? Why do I have to resort to this archaic, cryptic bullshit of running around the map just to double check where I'm supposed to go and when? It's literally such an easy thing to fix, yet they couldn't be bothered. Oh yeah, and as for the story of Elden Ring, it's written by George R.R. Martin, so you know for a fact the story is fucking terrible. Anyway, I started doing Ronnie's questline. I headed over to Siofra River to talk with Blade, who told me I should speak to a very pleasant person. I will kill you. Progressing the questline required me to beat Radahn, another demigod and shardbearer. Lucky for me, there was a festival to do just that. I headed over to the festival, let the Scottish person speak.
Prepare for battle!
Thank God for the subtitles, walked into battle, and holy shit. This boss battle is absolutely horrible. I am not exaggerating when I say that Radahn was both the hardest and the worst boss I had to face in my entire playthrough. Radahn is so terrible, I can't even think of where to begin with my complaints. I will take this moment to also criticize common tropes with bosses other than Radahn, along with the boss design of Elden Ring as a whole. Radahn just happens to be the culmination of pretty much every terrible design decision ever made. Now let me start by saying that the build up for Radahn is incredible. As much as I'd love to sit here and pretend to hate this game and hate this boss, I have to give credit where credit is due. The area, the premise, and the execution of the Radahn festival is nothing short of marvelous. I would say that from a lore and theatrical outlook, Radahn is hands down the best boss in the game. Unfortunately, that brilliance does not transfer over to his boss fight. To start off with, you have this long walk to the boss fight in which you're supposed to summon all of your allies. This is cool for like the first few tries, but after a while it gets really fucking tedious. This walk takes about 30 seconds, give or take, each time you make an attempt. So let's say you do 10 attempts of Radahn. That's 5 full minutes of just running and dodging. Who the fuck designed it this way? Yeah, I get it. It's cool, get it, I don't care. It's the same exact issue I had with Rennala, where the run to her boss fight was far too long. The only difference is that in this one I have to be extremely cautious and pray to God I don't get hit by one of these mock speed arrows, which also have a habit of, I don't know, hitting you to half health instantly. But what if, by some chance, you actually manage to get within melee range of this massive fat fuck? Well, you've gone from the first circle of hell straight into the fucking purgatory. First off, you'd think that for a giant, Radagon's attacks would do a lot of damage but be really slow. You would be correct about the damage, but you would be completely fucking wrong about the speed. Despite doing your entire fucking health bar in a single hit, FromSoft thought that's not enough and had their subbing interns crank the speed up to max.
I'm so sorry.
If an attack is to be really fast, you want that to be counterbalanced by the fact that the attack does little damage. And vice versa. If an attack is slow, it needs to hit hard to compensate. For example, Black Knife Electo hits really fast, but a singular attack doesn't do that much damage. On the other hand, the Fire Giant's attacks are really slow, but if you do end up getting hit by one, it's good night. For Radahn, his attacks are really fucking fast, and if you dare get hit by one, you better have an ambulance nearby. On top of this, Radahn has a bunch of other fun tricks up his sleeve. Like, I don't know, one-shots. Because why not? Listen, this is such a common problem with so many bosses in Elden Ring that I need to point this out. FromSoft, no one on earth likes being one-shot. Seriously, being one-shot is probably the least fun game mechanic ever invented. Whenever you do end up getting one-shot, you don't feel as if you got punished for a mistake, but rather that you got fucked by the system. The idea behind being punished by a boss is that you have the ability and capacity to learn from that mistake, but still continue fighting. This is literally the entire point for the existence of flasks. On the flip side, if you make too many mistakes too often or in too quick of a succession, you will run out of flasks and just die. When you create a one-shot mechanic, you've completely negated any possibility of enjoyment from the fight and made the player feel like they've just been completely fucked. You might have been doing a completely perfect fight so far, not being hit a single time, dodging every attack and feeling great. And then, boom! Your 5 minutes of perfect play just got erased in about a second. For clarity, by the way, when I say one shot, I don't necessarily mean a literal one-hit kill, but rather an ability that either literally kills you in one hit no matter what, or a combination of attacks that are nigh impossible to dodge if hit, which also have the capacity to do your entire health bar. For example, with Radahn, he only has one literal one-shot, that being the meteor. However, he has a bunch of combinations which, if hit, will 100% kill you, including but not limited to his meteors, his flurry of swords, the gravity orbs if he's close to you, and the stupid ass gravity field. Fun. Listen, if you're going to implement a one-shot, you need to do it in a similar fashion to Radahn's meteorite or Estelle's grab, where it's very clear and easy to dodge, and where being hit is pretty much completely your own stupidity. If a one-shot comes out at the speed of light, it's going to feel unfair, not challenging. So far we've covered that Radahn has a really annoying walk, has insane one-shot potential, does a fuck ton of damage, and is really fast. So surely he must be offset by being a glass cannon, similar to the Red Wolf. By my calculations, he has about 10,000 health. For comparison, Rennala, the previous boss, had about 7,500. Good job, FromSoft. Excellent work. But wait, you have the summons to help you. Yeah, just one problem. The summons are completely fucking useless. Do they do damage? No, not really. Do they tank for you? Only if you don't hit Radahn. Do they instantly die in one hit? Yes they do. Are they still pretty much required to have any chance of beating this dumbfuck boss? Yes. These summons are a pretty good time to talk about an issue that's present in Radahn, but also in the game with some later bosses, namely Elden Beast and Radagon. Pigeonholing. For the context of this video, pigeonholing is the practice of restricting a player's freedom to force them to beat a boss in the intended way. So for example, for Radahn, you're supposed to beat him with the summons, and you're gonna have a really bad time trying without them. Well, actually, you're gonna have a really bad time either way, but doing it without summons, well, your time is gonna be very bad. Now, I know some dumb fuck in the comments is gonna bring up that theoretically, you can beat any boss with any strategy at any time, including Radahn without summons, and yes, this is true. You can also theoretically beat the game being fucked to death by a horse. What is possible and what can be expected of the average player are wildly different things. Yes, there are people who can beat Radahn without summons. That does not change the fact that the game has made the boss specifically with summons in mind and designed him as such. In this way, the game forces you to play by its rules, not allowing you to have your own unique way of beating the boss. Elden Ring and games alike are at their best when you can play the game the way you want to play, using any strategy and have that strategy be viable. If you want to use magic, go ahead. If you want to play melee, go ahead. If you want to do a mix of both, go ahead. The issue with bosses like Radahn is that they force you to play the game in a certain way, which removes any feeling of agency you might have. I will talk about this more in depth later in the video, but Radahn is a great example of needless pigeonholing on behalf of the developers. Anyway, let's say, hypothetically, that you somehow managed to get through the bullshit one-hit moves in phase 1 and managed to get him to half health. At this point, Radahn will jump into the air and leave you wondering where he left. Now if you look into the sky, you might see something. A meteor that's coming straight for your head. As if Radahn wasn't cancer enough already, some jackass at FromSoft thought it would be a great idea to give him fucking magic. One-shot combos? Of course. Meteors that are pretty much impossible to dodge. Why not? Complete disregard for mental health, as expected. In short, whoever designed Radahn, consider suicide. After beating Radahn, I was given access to Nokron, the Eternal City. Now whoever thought to add platforming in this area? After exploring the area, I came across a boss room where I was faced with the supreme being. Me. Now, the boss version of me was shit, but he was also cheating. Only I'm allowed to use magic. So, on my next visit, before I entered the boss room, I took off all of my gear and was completely naked. Soon as the copy formed, I put all of it back on. Fuck you. Me. I continued exploring and found something great. Mimic tear ashes, which would give me a summon of myself. Now this would be great, however, my ego is far too fragile to handle another version of me. So I returned back to Ranni, gave her a dagger, spoke to a giant and found out she's fucking dead. Thank God. Unfortunately for me, she had opened a portal to a whole nother location, which happened to have this thing. Yeah. I ran past him, ran into some caves and had to fight some disgusting creatures. Listen, I'm not scared of bugs or anything, but Jesus Christ. While looking through the cave, I also saw a man T-posing. Now I thought this was a funny bug, but it was actually a feature. Now here, I fought the best enemy in the game. A fucking boulder. Whoever thought to implement a boulder into Elden Ring, good job. You deserve a raise. Is it an easy enemy? Yeah. Does it make sense? No. But it is very funny. And that's all I really care about. After reaching the end of the cave system, I had to fight a baleful shadow, which just so happened to be Blade, the wolfman from before. I made the mistake of letting Blade hit me once and got absolutely fucked. So, where was this damage in the Radahn boss fight? If I remember correctly, you did some odd 20 damage per hit, you sleazy, cheating shit. By beating Blade, I unlocked a new area, the Lake of Rot. Now, the water here is Scarlet Rot, which is basically the Elden Ring equivalent of AIDS. You can delay its onset, but you cannot escape it. Now, to avoid getting AIDS, you're supposed to do some puzzle-solving bullshit and run platform to platform, resting in between. But if you're not a pussy, you can do what I did and just run through. By the end of it, you will reach a temple which has a lot of bogmen. Now, you might think you're supposed to go into the big building that's smack dead in the middle, but the genius level designers strike again. You're actually supposed to go into a corner with literally nothing of interest and jump into this coffin. I love the direction of this game. It's just so great. Like everyone, it's so obvious. Once you enter the coffin, you will be sent down, and at the bottom, you will enter a boss fight with Estelle, who is looking dripped out. Now, pro tip, don't do what I did. Anyway, after beating Estelle, you unlock a new area where you will find Ranni. And now, she's fucking dead. For real, this time. Or is she? No. You give her a magic ring, and she magically springs back to life to give you a greatsword. But I'm not here for the lore, so I don't really care. You see, you might be wondering why I went through the trouble to complete Ranni's questline. It wasn't because I wanted to help her, it's because this new area has something of extreme value. You see, if you head over to this ring here and enter, you will be faced with Electo. Now, fighting him normally, a little bit cringe. The way you're supposed to fight him is by trapping him into a corner and stun-locking him so he can't move. I know, working exactly as intended. Now, beating Electo here grants the single best summon in the entire game. Black Knife Tish. Tiche. I don't know, I don't speak Spanish. I upgraded Tish to +10 and she was able to effectively solo most of the game, which, funnily enough, is still more fun than actually playing. But hey, I'm getting ahead of myself. With Tish in my pocket, I headed over to the royal capital. Now, while heading there, I was given a heart attack. Morgott, the first boss, you know, the one that fucked me for like 70 attempts? Yeah, he was back to haunt me. Unfortunately for him though, much like the first time, I was able to spam magic. Unlucky. Now, before entering the city, there was a draconic tree sentinel gatekeeping the entrance. So I summoned Tish and just kept spamming magic. I entered the capital, started exploring, and noticed something. The genius level designers strike again. I mean, seriously, how fucking hard is it to design a castle? Like, I swear to God, the level design in this area is some of the worst shit I've ever seen in a video game. I spent closer to an hour just pointlessly running around looking for the next boss in this stupid piece of shit. Now, if you're a game designer and want an idea of what not to make an area, this is your best bet. Now, for example, you look at this area and you think, yeah, that's pretty simple, right? Just enter through the gates. Unfortunately, you are stupid and wrong. Instead, climb this random fucking dragon wing up to the next area. But wait, it gets better. Oh look, there's a big stadium up on the hill with a path leading up to it. This must be the way to continue. No, you're actually supposed to run on the fucking tree branches to reach a boss fight. What? That is so fucking random. You have all the infrastructure in place to make it simple and straightforward, yet you intentionally choose to make it convoluted and confusing. I do not get the design decision, and it's so close to being good that it pisses me off that you fucked it up. Whatever, the boss you fight is the Shade of Godfrey, and unlike most of this area, this boss is actually pretty good. He doesn't have any one-hit bullshit, his moves are clear and choreographed well, his fast hits deal a fair bit of damage, while his charge-up hits do a lot. Overall, a really good boss on all sides, and an example of what every boss fight should resemble. I just wish there were more bosses like him. Unfortunately for Godfrey though, I had something he didn't. Black Knife Tish, who completely fucking ravaged him. It wasn't even close. The rest of the area is pretty straightforward, and at the end of it, you find Morgott, the Omen King. Once again, a pretty good boss, even though fairly difficult. Well, difficult without Tish, that is. With Tish, this was a first attempt boss. After beating Morgott, I went to rest, and while resting, I was once again interrupted by the woman, who wanted me to travel to Iceland. In Denmark, I met one of the natives, who tried to tell me something.
Yeah, I am from Denmark. Yeah, I like biking. I like the bike when it go. I like ice. Tasty, tasty ice.
Unfortunately for him, I don't speak third world, so I didn't understand a word of what he said. A little further across the road, I saw a filthy Swede. In typical Swedish fashion, he was carrying a shitty ceremonial plate with a nose in his chest cavity. Fucking Swedes. I tried telling him to go back to IKEA, but... yeah, didn't go too well. Now let me just tell you that the fire giant fucking sucks. Pretty much every hit is a one-shot if you don't have 40 vitality. This stupid fucking snow attack is impossible to dodge, and just one small issue. He has 40,000 health. That's 4 times more than Radahn, and twice as much as the final boss. Have you ever been playing Call of Duty, or Halo, or whatever the fuck you kids nowadays play? You ever been playing a game facing a bullet sponge and think to yourself, damn, I wish more opponents took 40 minutes and 100 rounds to kill? No? You haven't? Oh well, sucks to be you, because killing this guy takes forever. No, like actually, on the attempt where I beat him, it took 4 full minutes for this guy to go down. Listen, he's not the hardest boss, but he's just really, well, boring. I mean, beating him, I was just like, okay, cool. Like, I had no joy. Like, there is literally zero joy in beating this guy. He's just a walking waste of time. Alright, anyway, moving forward, I reached the volcano top and rested at the side of Grace. Wait, what the bitch fucking killed me, what the fuck? After waking up from my wife's pyromanic episode, I ended up in France. I traveled through the area until I ended up on this ledge here, where I came to face a fucking dragon. Now let me just say, whoever is in charge of making these dragons, you are fucking mental. After beating the dragon, I ventured forward. I ran into these two. Holy fuck! I swear to God, whoever thought duo bosses were a fun idea needs to get their brain examined. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into what makes these two insanely annoying, but I will say that this fat rolling technique is complete and utter shit. I swear to God, dodging it is 90% luck and 10% ultra luck. Now, you might think this boss fight is actually easy because you can just kill one of them and focus on the other. That's what I thought, until I realized that if one of them dies, they fucking resurrect. What the fuck? Now listen, this boss fight's gimmick is pretty much cheesing. So as with Radahn, you fight cheese with cheese. So let me teach you the tricks of the trade people. You see, what you're going to want to do is use either sleeping arrows or sleep bombs. For some reason, this is one of the only bosses in Elden Ring that is not immune to sleep as a status effect. So by throwing a sleeping potion at one of them, preferably the fat one, you can effectively turn this from a 2-on-1 to a 1-on-1. Now granted, it's still not going to be a complete cakewalk, but it beats whatever the fuck this is. After beating the Godskin Duo, yada yada yada, you get this by now, but one thing happened which still irks me. You see, there's an NPC in Elden Ring called Iron Fist Alexander. Now Alexander is an absolute G. He's a walking demigod and a testament to intellect and resilience. Now Alexander has a pretty extensive questline, at the end of which you're supposed to meet him in this area. But, because the people developing this game are incompetent, he has a good chance of just not showing up. In fact, that's what happened to me! This is a problem not just because I don't want to have to kill Alexander, but because the reward for completing his questline is very fucking good, and simply killing him gives a shittier version of that reward. So because some fat-fingered idiot over at FromSoft didn't debug the code, I had to do something I still regret.
I see it now. Was my whole existence just a crock?
I'm sorry, Alex, I didn't have a choice. Anyway, moving swiftly forward from the tragedy of Alexander, may he rest in peace, I navigated the area toward the next boss. Guarding the entrance, there's a draconic tree sentinel. Just don't be stupid like me and run past him. You will save yourself a lot of misfortune. After beating the sentinel, I entered the boss room where I was greeted by the beast Clergyman, who told me I was destined to die. This is how my first attempt went. Come here, you oversized dog. Oh, awesome. Health, that's cool. Get fucked! Get absolutely fucked, you stupid animal! Don't you ever come back here again. No! Not even close, baby. I know. That was a first attempt boss. That wasn't that hard, that was actually pretty... Why is my health burning? What the fuck? Woo! First try, baby. Easy as that. Now, apparently, Maliketh is by many considered to be one of the hardest bosses. If you struggle with this boss, get good. After beating him, I realized that the slight paramanic episode the woman had was just a little bit of trolling. I guess you could say the tree couldn't handle the heat. Yeah, I got him. Moving on. After burning down the tree, you wake up in Saudi Arabia. Here, you meet... What's that buzzing? A drone? What's a drone do? Oh my god, Jerusalem money, get down! Here, you meet Gideon, who will keep a monologue about... something. I'll be honest, the story of this game is kind of ass, so I haven't really been paying attention. Now at this point, we're entering the end game. Gideon is one of the last 3, well, technically 4, but anyway, one of the last bosses you fight. As much as I would love to complain about these last few bosses, I'll be honest, I can't. These boss fights, for the most part, are actually pretty fun. They're well balanced, offer some difficulty, and most importantly, don't have any bullshit gimmicks or one-shot attacks or any other FromSoft rabbit out of a hat bullshit. I never felt upset with these bosses, and I would say that this last portion of the game is, in my honest opinion, the best one. It's just a massive shame that it takes about 35 hours into the game before it gets good. I would like to give special attention to Godfrey, who might be one of my favorite fights in the game. He's challenging in his own right, punishing mistakes, hitting hard and keeping you on your toes. But he's also very well choreographed, which balances out. When you do get fucked, it doesn't feel unfair, but just serves as a reminder that you're not yet good enough. Honestly, I wish more fights were modeled similar to Godfrey, not to mention that his second phase, he goes monkey. Such a good boss. A+ FromSoft, more like this. And less like that. You know what you did. Now as you beat Godfrey, you will see a shining light unlike any mist you've seen before. Touching this golden light will send you to the last boss battle of the game against Radagon and the Elden Beast. These boss fights are, much like Godfrey, tough but fair. There's only one big gripe I have with these boss fights which I didn't personally run into, but which I can see to be a terrible design flaw with the final bosses. You remember when previously, when speaking of Radahn, I spoke of pigeonholing? Yeah, it's once more a very prominent component of this boss fight. You see, if you fight this boss with magic or melee, you'll do fine. But let's say you enjoy playing a Fate build and enjoy playing with holy damage for one reason or another. Tough luck, because both Radagon and the Elden Beast have a resistance of 80 against holy damage. That means an 80% resistance against your main DPS. If you're a Fate player and plan on beating the Elden Beast with holy damage, good luck with that. you'll run out of mana before you even see their fucking health bar move. Now to me, this is fucking stupid. Yes, I get it, they're holy beings, I don't care. You should be able to beat the final boss, as with most bosses, in any way you would like to beat them, including but not limited to holy damage. By giving them such a ridiculous amount of resistance to holy damage, you're effectively forcing people who play that way to reset and play a melee class, or at least some other class they might not enjoy as much. Once again, this comes off as insanely frustrating to anyone playing the game in that particular way, because you're basically telling them, fuck you, love FromSoft. Anyway, I stepped into the arena with Radagon and used my secret technique, called Divine Fortification, to cancel 60% of his damage. And after a while of smacking the Elden Beast, I had finally done it. Thank fucking god. Finally I'm done with this shitty ass game. I don't have to fucking play this anymore, thank fuck. I had finally, after all these years, beaten Elden Ring. Now you might be asking me, after this journey, should I play it? What the f? Have you not been listening? No you shouldn't. This game fucking sucks. It is terrible for the most part. Listen, there are genuinely good things buried in Elden Ring which I did genuinely enjoy, including some of the bosses. However, the game is plagued by so many issues that it's borderline torture to play it, and had it not been for this video, I would have probably never gotten past the first boss. Now obviously, I have touched on many of these issues already, and I'm not just going to repeat those here. However, I still have more things to complain about, so strap yourselves in, and let's get to it. Starting off with the rune system. Now if you don't know, the way the rune system in Elden Ring works is that runes are the currency used for both buying items and more importantly for leveling up your character. As such, these runes are pretty important, and toward the end the rune costs get absolutely insane. I mean, at level 120 it costs you like 100,000 runes just to level up once, which is just a little bit excessive if you ask me. Now if you die, the developers thought it would be funny if you dropped all of your runes. This is fine, until you realize that dying before recollecting them means losing all of them. That's fine, I'll just put them into storage. No, you won't, because there's no way to store them. You're just going to have to spend them or lose them, whichever you prefer, and you're just going to have to take that like a good little boy. I understand that this is the way the game punishes you for dying, but it doesn't make the game better in literally any sense. I can literally grind out infinite runes and replace everything I might have ever lost. Making the player lose all of their runes on that is more of an inconvenience and a waste of time than it is an actual useful gameplay mechanic. I never felt, oh shucks, I lost 50,000 runes, but rather, fuck me, that's going to take at least 5 minutes to get back. While I understand the concept, and I understand why it's implemented, in practice it serves no actual purpose other than to extend playtime. Now, admittedly, this is more of an annoyance than it is some huge game-breaking issue, but I think it's worth pointing out anyway. Second issue, Radahn. And third, shitty world design. And I don't mean that in the sense of it being directionless, although it is, but rather in the sense that the world has very few things worth exploring, and finding that good stuff beneath those heaps of shit is extremely tedious. For my first 8 or so hours, I didn't look up any guides or item locations at all. I let the game take me where I had to be organically and just experienced it as you would normally. What I very quickly realized about this sort of exploration is that it's completely fucking pointless. You run around this vast empty world with very little to offer, and even though there are valuable items to be found, such as the meteor staff, rock sling and boss items like the Moonveil, finding those items legitimately without any guidance is going to take hundreds, if not thousands of hours. And I think that this is mostly due to the fact that there's not really any hints as to which items are going to be good and which ones will be complete trash. For example, you might go into a cave, get your shit completely kicked in, watch your mother get fucked in front of you, and get a shitty dagger for your efforts. You might walk through a very similar area, but with literally zero struggles, and get the best sword in the entire game. This sort of open world exploration doesn't work because there's nothing that's motivating you to continue, because 80% of the game will straight up kill you if you even dare stop to explore. The only argument I can make for this open world is the fact that visually it's a very good one and it's extremely creative, but more than that I cannot praise. Fourth, Radahn, and fifth, simply put, the game is far too annoying. Wait, sorry, the game is way too hard. Yes, I know, get good, haha, let's laugh, but I'm about to make the most feared argument in the Souls community. The argument that literally every Souls deck rider is scared to answer, and the argument that shows the mental incapability of every Souls player on Earth. The easy mode argument. If you're watching this with a Souls fan, there's a good chance they might have just fainted. If they did, I hope they hit their head on the way down. Now, I understand that this argument is very widely disliked by players of Souls-likes, mostly because of the dumbass gatekeeping mentality they have, but with that being said, the Souls community is filled to the brim with dumb fucks, so I don't really care what they think. So let me tell you boys why Elden Ring and other Souls-likes should have an easy mode and help you dismantle any arguments that a mentally ill Souls fan will make. I will take the role of Steven Crowder, the funny sign man, teaching you to destroy the left and their liberal Dark Souls arguments. Let's start by stating the obvious. Having an easy mode doesn't harm anyone, but at most, the player themselves. If you don't want to play Elden Ring on easy, you don't have to. But in case you do, you can. Now, Souls fans tend to deflect this argument by saying that it hurts the intended experience and that it's not the developer's vision. Let's focus on the first one for a second. Listen, I'm all for people following their vision and ideas of what their product should be, may it be games, art, or whatever. It's good to stick to your principles and create what you want to create. Now, with that being said, if the product is shit, the developer's vision is completely fucking irrelevant. Saying developer's vision is like saying it's shit on purpose. Yeah, doesn't mean that it's not terrible. Yes, you can have a vision to make a game annoying as fuck to play. That doesn't mean that it's magically going to be good because it's the intended experience. To put it this way, the CEO of toilet paper might have a vision that instead of toilet paper, we should instead be wiping our asses with fucking sandpaper. In that case, the vision of the CEO is completely irrelevant unless you consider bleeding out of your ass to be a good thing. In which case,
you like men! You like men kissing!
Far as the intended experience argument goes, that one is completely pointless. You can literally have the intended experience with an easy mode as well. You can literally have a difficulty selection that says easy mode and normal mode, with normal being the intended experience the developer envisioned. It's not a choose one situation, you can have both, so making this argument is completely void. Now, I know some people will say that if there's an option for easy mode, I might switch from hard to easy at moments of frustration. This is an argument that sounds good until you realize that it's a complete self-own. You stupid fuck. You've effectively proven the exact point you're trying to argue against. If you're the type of player who might switch to easy mode due to frustration, you would likely benefit from an easy mode anyway. If you really enjoyed the game in its intended state, you wouldn't have this issue of wanting to switch. The only time you would ever have this feeling is if you feel the game is frustrating and not fun to play. So let's run down the pros and cons of easy mode. Pros: more accessible, growing the fanbase and franchise, more player choice and freedom, less frustration and feelings of dread, and just overall, more fun. Now let's look at the cons. Quite literally, none. If you want to debate me, you can cry in the comments. Or, alternatively, you can @ me on Twitter. Check me out. TLDR, my argument is that there's no real loss in introducing an easy mode to Elden Ring. Or, if there is, it gets heavily outweighed by the pros. Anyway, this video is getting absurdly long, and I don't want to make this into an hour-long video. So TLDR, play Witcher 3 instead. Thanks for watching, remember to subscribe and like, or dislike, I don't really care, and I'll see you people in the next video in about 6 months.